Well, good afternoon. It's a sunny day at the Little River Casino. Really nice day out here.
Can you hear what's up? Kearney, can you hear that?
I'll bring them in down here.
Kearney, go stand out in front. Make sure you can hear Mike, please.
Are they coming in this way, eh?
Looks like they're going that way.
Through the wall. Oh, you're coming back from Baltimore. That's all right.
Bet that's a Harley. It is a Harley. I knew that. Sheriff O'Hagan. Little River Casino. place has got 6 cylinders with gold wing trike.
Let's dance in the blowing on the saxophone. There's no blowing on the slide trombone. All come together with the crash boom bang. Old rhythm section was a purple. Everybody is wrong. Everybody in the whole South Block was dancing in the jailhouse. Dancing in the jailhouse.
They're setting up the Michigan Wall.
Yeah, picture again for the flags.
Well, we won't have this building to look at anymore. Yesterday about 11 o'clock he started it. A couple of swings of that big bucket that was falling down huge portions. What think he's done. No, I guess they think he's done, but I guess not. I'm at the Ellsworth Hog Roast. One of the events they had down here is the horse bowl. Larry Reed from Bear Lake is pulling. Who there? Who there, Nellie? Well, it's the day after Father's Day, and we got Black Cat, who's not a father. It's not his fault. We took him to the vet. He came back a changed cat. Now he's just laying on a pile of National Geographics, thinking about what he's going to do today. So I'm trying to think, what did I do yesterday? See, I slept, I napped, I ran around like a crazy person, but I'm still a cat. I love being a cat. I am so lazy. I'm too lazy to even talk. I just have somebody talk for me. I'm a lazy cat. Now this is Fuzzball, aka Honeycat, aka Fuzzball Hairball. Stupid.
I apologize for that. Well, hey, real quick, thanks for coming. My last one was, I think summer is a time where people get busy and they don't come out as much, but as I promised, I want to still be in the communities as much as I can, and these are beneficial meetings to me, at least I feel they are. And I noticed my attendance since in the month of June has not been what I've been in all my other ones, but that's fine. Gives us a little bit more time just to chat. But here's where we're at in Lansing right now. As most of you understand, we're getting close to our summer break time, which becomes extremely busy in the communities. We'll be working the district pretty hard as soon as we finish. Rumor has it that if we can get the budget and everything done, we may finish as soon as this week. Hearing tidbits of information that we could actually be in session or off 1 week and then back in immediately following the 4th of July. Not sure. We'll see where that all goes. But the budget is our big push this week, is to see if we can get the budget worked through and passed. I will tell you that, as most of you know, I opposed the school aid part of the budget when it came through the first process. I thought what it did to us here in the north was an extremely big disservice. It was going to be equal funding, so once again that gap widened between us and the folks in the southeast. The way that they formulated what we call at-risk children did very little to our districts here, and especially the districts that were out of formula. It cost them up near $100,000. So if you take my Frankfurt, Alberta school district, they lost about $92,000 out of their budget, which in a district with 536 kids, it would have been devastating Northport, same. So those issues got worked out, 2 times funding. Looks like we're gonna be, if everything comes through and things are right, it'll be about $120 a student, which will be an increase of $20 compared to last year. Well, welcome, Sheriff. And,
Whoa. Just, I got to stand up a little respect.
and so anyways, the budget is a big piece of where we're at this week. So that'll be our main focus, the next couple days. And if everything goes right, like I said, we'll be out next week for about a week, and then looks like we'll go back, so, hi there. I have a couple bills that came out of committee, they're sitting in the Senate side, I'm hoping they're taken up this week. One of them was a disabled veterans bill. When I was running, I found out an issue that veterans, if a veteran passes away and is a disabled vet, the spouse immediately has to return the plate under Michigan law. And I felt that
Has to do what?
spouse- Pardon?
She has to do what?
She has to return that plate to the Secretary of State.
Oh, the license plate.
Yep, and then she
Okay.
just goes back to a regular license plate, and I felt that, you know, she's as much a part of the life, and I just really felt strongly that they should have that. I have a couple hunting bills that are sitting in committee right now and potentially could be moved tomorrow, and they're actually for out-of-state hunters. With some of our fee structure for out-of-state property owners, I felt we were, do you know what I'm talking about? Unbelievable price we charge them, and they're paying the highest tax rate, and we're not giving them any break. It doesn't give them a resident rate, but I feel it takes the opportunity for them to be a legal hunter, because I have a feeling right now, a lot of them paying $400 are saying, I'm only hunting 2 days, I'll take my chance.
Yeah.
But if we can get it for considerably less than that, then we're able to track. And then the other part was a 7-day license to a 3-day license. $80 plus a few other things for somebody to come in and hunt for 7 days, when most of them, they're gonna come in, they're gonna blow in and hunt probably a Friday afternoon and a Sunday for small game, or a Saturday, and then heading home. We're just pricing ourselves out, and our license purchases for out of state dropped 33% when we made this change. And of course now, the department has an issue, they think that I'm gonna cause them more money, which I actually think it'll increase it, because there's a few sides to that story. Get people to come in and hunt, they spend a lot of money. And then the other big issue in the Department of Natural Resource side is the Michigan land cap. And as everybody knows, the state of Michigan purchases a fair amount of property. And when they buy that property in a county, that tax revenue is actually kind of lost. They do a PILT payment, property in lieu of tax, but it's at a seriously reduced rate. We have some counties right now that between the state, the federal, and the conservancies that are out there are starting to approach 80% of their county's property is now locked into a seriously reduced tax rate, and in some of them, zero tax at all. And that's really starting to restrict some of these counties, so we're trying to manage that if it gets to a certain percent, the state just can't purchase more property. And along with that, it'll bring in the community to work with the state and have a voice in that decision where they don't now. Yeah,
Are they working on selling off any other property?
they are, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll sell some of it off, but what's been happening is they're just purchasing more. And I understand some of it, there'll be large tracts and they go, hey, we'd rather have that. But every time we do that, and it's not so much for us here in the lower peninsula, because we're not too bad, but you get into the upper peninsula, we already know we have an issue with tax and revenues coming in, and when you have the federal government, the state, and the conservancies, it just takes a ton of money out of the system. So that's one of our big topics that we've been working on. It's been a couple years that it's been talked back and forth, but we're getting very serious right now on that. so we're working hard to get that. Insurance, we're battling, my last bill that hopefully we'll vote on this week, but I'm not holding my breath, is our auto insurance no-fault system. And we've just started to scratch a little bit of the surface on trying to take care of some of the fraud, making the claims, expedite the claims, the unassigned claims. And really what these bills are is for the folks that don't have insurance, that may have been hit by a motorist, and we can't figure it out, but these claims get filled. They can be originated from the sheriff's department, they can be originated from the hospital, but in some cases they'll get lost in from the report from the sheriff to the hospital, and then the hospital fills out the report, and then we can be up to 9 months right now before that report gets back into unassigned claims. Well, problem is that person's transient. We may not know who it is, not be able to get a hold of them again because so much time, and these people move relatively quickly. And then what happens is they'll get assigned to what we call unassigned claims. And basically that means all of us in this room, because I'm assuming that everybody in this room has auto insurance, we're actually the ones that are paying that bill out of our premiums that we're paying. So I'm not holding my breath, folks. I'll be honest with you, I thought these would breeze through, and we're starting to get a fair amount of resistance, and the resistance is basically from the Knuckles, if you draw from Basie to Kalamazoo and across, that's kind of where the resistance is. And I know that you've been hearing some of these figures more than once, but we can take Wayne County, and we know that 52% of the drivers in Wayne County have zero insurance. Okay. And we know that on an average, and our sheriff may be able to share a little bit, but we know that about 25% of the people that are driving in Manistee County are uninsured. And it seems high, and you think, are you kidding me? But this is facts from the Secretary of State, and those folks are taking money from you and I. If they drive without insurance, they're taking money from you and I, and that is a problem.
If someone gets pulled over by the sheriff could probably tell me, they don't have proof of insurance, what happened?
Well, actually, I'll jump in and I'll ask you to clarify it. I've done a ride-along, so they actually already know that person has insurance by the time they're coming up to the door of the car.
Right.
So the biggest thing is the first thing that's gonna happen is they've already pulled it up in the computer. It comes back and they've got a valid registration, valid driver's license, proof of insurance. We already probably know the owner has got an issue. So of course, as all of us know, things have changed dramatically with our law officials because we don't know what we're dealing with. I mean, the old day they'd walk up to the door, now they walk to the side, window comes down. That person's, if they've got a concealed weapon or whatever, they've got to announce that immediately to the sheriff. If they don't, something comes back, they've got it. But they know right away if there's insurance on that vehicle. And then when that driver's license is handed through, if that's not the same name that's on that vehicle, they'll run that name. But John, are we pretty close to what the truth is there? 25% without insurance here?
Yeah, I'd say it's pushing 25.
Okay.
And like he said, most of the time we're able to find out right away. If not, we are checking even locally to the insurance they provide. If the computer doesn't give it to us, because sometimes there's a little lag there, then we'll get on the phone and verify.
But what happens?
If there's no insurance, again, it depends on if it's the registered owner driving or not. So if it's you driving and you don't have proof but you have insurance, we can cite you a no proof insurance. If we do that, it's a civil infraction, you come to court, and a lot of times I've seen the court dismiss those once they find out you have it.
Right.
So it's
No,
almost
what
like,
if you don't?
but if you don't, it's verified, then that no proof insurance will get a lot more expensive when you come. Because it's a misdemeanor to not have insurance. Okay, and our judge runs the fine anywhere from $200 to $500. So If I stop you and you don't have it, you actually are probably gonna go to jail that night.
Okay, well, that's what we're getting down to, because,
And vehicles get impounded, then you can't get them out of the impound lot until you show proof, or until you yourself have it taken somewhere and pay the cost.
I'm thinking to myself, we pay $250 a month for two of us, and we're both seniors. No accident record that they can find. And so I was saying, gee, why didn't I just take a chance, you know? I never get pulled over. Well,
Or a lot of other people take, and they'll keep an old one, they'll get insurance right away, they'll call and cancel it, now they have a valid proof in their possession, and they'll use that to show. But those days are kind of number two because of the way we verify now.
We're upgrading the system. And now we know less than 14 days, and it's actually quicker than that because they're getting a lot better at that. But it's gonna get to the point where it'll almost be on a 24-hour turnaround. And I will tell you, I really don't hold a lot of sympathy when you don't have insurance. Because you're taking money from me.
Yeah.
You're taking money from our district. And do I feel bad for folks in the Detroit area that are paying an average of $4,500 a year for insurance? You bet I do. But the problem is, a lot of that comes because there's so many now that are uninsured that are just taking that chance. I feel very strongly that that license plate needs to be stripped from that vehicle immediately, and they've gotta come back with, when they go to court, with the 6 months proof of insurance. We're eliminating the 7-day policy, which I know our sheriff will be very great for, because that is the violation of all violations. Insure me for 7 days, cancel it as soon as I don't have it anymore, but now I got a new tag on my plate that says it's valid through 2017. It's just a proponent to cause cheating and fraud, and it's concerning.
Is the health insurance catastrophic piece of the insurance pretty well dead? Is that?
You know what, here, there was a big article in the paper this weekend, it's going up another $10, so it's gonna be 170. I look at it, and in most cases, I will tell you this, that's a small piece of the puzzle when it comes to the big fee part.
Is it?
It's $170. I don't know. I called a friend of mine who's an insurance agent in Chicago. I said, hey, what's it gonna cost if I put insurance on my wife's Expedition? And, they're about $600 a policy cheaper, and that's with a $3 million rider that he puts on, to cover that. There's just so many pieces of the puzzle of the fraud and no fault, and we've golden parachuted it, and I will tell you, very, very difficult, and I would just want to explain why it's gonna be so difficult to get that changed. As we've moved through some of these in hearing in committee, when you get to it, that day when we're getting ready for a vote, they fill the room up with folks that are confined to a wheelchair or in a walker, may not have ever been in an auto accident in their life, but they're hired to come in, and it becomes a very emotional piece, and people go, I can't do that to that person. You know what, and I get it. I understand that part. We need to find out, and that's what I've been drilling down and trying to find out is, okay, if we kept this, if we eliminated the fraud part of it, we brought those things in, what are we seriously gonna save? Are we gonna save, the $400 or $500 a year? And if we are, then we gotta be able to make those moves, and it's gonna be difficult, but we gotta find out where all that money is in the middle part of the insurance, and that's why, as my buddy's preparing one for me, we can actually say, okay, what's the difference between Illinois and Michigan? And where is that middle ground that we're being taken advantage of?
What about the rates?
Pardon?
I worked in healthcare my whole life.
Right.
The rates that the state of Michigan pays are wonderful if you're a hospital. Is there making any headway? I mean, the hospitals like the rates high.
Yep.
Blue Cross, the insurance industries like the rates high, cause that takes less pressure off of them, so hopefully it keeps theirs down, so they support the hospitals.
Well, actually, in most cases, the providers would like to see a fee schedule come in because that cost is coming right out of their profit margin. And so, like, you go in, if you go in and you have an auto accident, and they'll ask you immediately when you go to the hospital, were you involved in an auto accident? If the police have got the report, they already know what came into that. But if there's no, you just go and show up at the hospital, the first thing they're gonna almost, I'm gonna tell you, within the first couple questions, did this happen in an auto accident? Because the minute if they find out it's in an auto accident, the whole fee schedule goes into the trash, and now they go to a new one. And the perfect example, you can get an MRI, work comp, regular, about $900, $3,100 state average for an auto accident, so it's almost 3 times as much.
MRI?
You know, it's almost 3 times the cost on an average throughout the state if it's a work comp where they've done the fee. The fees just are astronomical. We know that about, Diane, I've said the number, if I got it wrong today, you probably remember it. About 5% of the patient care that comes into a hospital is auto, but it's 8% of their profit. So,
Workman's comp and the auto have always been good payers, and the hospitals don't like those. That's part of why it's so hard to change, because Blue Cross adds money to their rates to cover bad debts and things. That keeps them down, so they support the hospitals in keeping the rates up, and it's a hard.
yeah.
So the insurance companies like you guys paying higher rates. It does indirectly help them.
Indirectly, it's a profit. So that's kind of where we're at on autos. So those are the big things. We've got, like I said, a few days left, and then we'll have a crazy hectic summer of, there's so many things going on out in the district that, you know, we'll be as busy as can be, but that's kind of what's going on in my world right now. Yep,
I had a question. You mentioned concealed weapon.
yeah,
You voted for concealed weapon without a permit.
correct.
How does that work?
Basically, under the state of Michigan, you can open carry right now. You can go in and buy a handgun anywhere you want, show them your ID, they do a background check, you get a handgun, you put it on your hip, you can go. We call it a coat tax, because basically what's happening is, if somebody, hey John, if somebody had a weapon on, they put a coat over top of that, that just went from an open carry to concealed carry, which would mean immediately that if a law official or you said, man, somebody's carrying a gun, he comes over, he doesn't have a concealed weapons permit, he just became a federal, it's a federal crime. It's no longer just a misdemeanor or anything. He's a hard-nosed criminal. Same thing in a vehicle. You have a handgun in a vehicle with no CPL. You put it in your hard case, you sat it down on the floor, sheriff came up, said, I see a handgun case, do you have one in there? You didn't tell me. Well, I don't have a CPL, once again, in violation. Basically, we open it up, the training issue. If you're gonna carry in concealed weapon permit areas, you have to still have the training. It just doesn't allow you just to go anywhere and be wild, wild west.
Okay.
I just feel that we put a lot of rules on it. I'm heavy into training. I feel that and I believe what comes out of the Senate will have a piece of the training model put back into the front half of that. And we encourage that as it walked out, and I still believe it will be there. But it does open up it doesn't give you the free ride. If you bought a handgun and decided you wanted to cross and go into Indiana, you still need to have a CPL. You can't just carry this gun willy-nilly anywhere. Any of the areas that have been on the CPL still have to be there. You still have to have that training. The other states that have done this, their training has actually gone up. I don't know what your feeling is on that. You're probably, I don't know. I never got your opinion on it.
I don't think most sheriffs are for that, to be quite honest with you. It's just, it's
I had
another.
two of mine that worked.
I don't recall the training portion part of it, like you just said, to come out of the Senate. We're watching that.
Well, that
close.
hasn't come out of the Senate yet.
But that's what, we're hoping there's still some training, because again, it's risky enough. It's nothing against people carrying guns, we get that. It's just that extra element. We know the person who's carrying it is a lawful person, they went through the steps to get it, we have no issue with that. But the fact that they can just go buy one now and put it in their coat and carry it around, it's a concern. It just is.
Yeah, I had two of my four that supported the bill. So,
Would this bill provide, if you have a CPL, can you go through one state or go through another state?
if you have a CPL, you can travel in a lot of states with that. I will tell you, no matter what, if you go into Illinois, even if you have a CPL, that baby better be locked in your trunk.
And you might want to check with whatever state you're going
Yeah,
to. 'cause
but I do know that Illinois is one of the, even if you're a law official, even if you're a law official, and if you go into Chicago, it doesn't matter if you're a police officer, you better have it locked in your trunk. Because I know I went with some folks when we went out bird hunting, and he says, well, he says, we're not stopping before we get to Illinois. I'm putting my, he says, I don't like to be separated from my weapon, but it's going in the trunk. I'm not taking a chance. Because they don't care. It's their rule. Yep.
A few years ago, you made it legal for motorcyclists to ride without a helmet. Has anything happened to the statistics on that? Is there any way you can show that, yeah, it's a good idea, bad idea? No difference?
Yeah, they're on the organ donor list.
You know what, that's.
Just say you don't know.
It's a great question. I have had motorcycle groups that have presented me information on both sides. One that'll say that, you know what, we've seen an increase in accidents and, you know, being more serious because of no helmet or with helmet. The last group that came in and we worked on some legislation that I put an amendment on, but I will tell you this. The majority of the accidents are becoming more high speed, where a person will pull out in front of a motorcyclist and they'll hit. I'm not gonna be able to tell you if a helmet is gonna save that person's life or if the helmet would. Distracted driving is a serious issue. And we can look at the legislator that was killed last year. You know, he had a helmet on, he was dead immediately. You know, I'm a motorcycle rider. My wife encourages me to wear a helmet 100% of the time.
Do you?
And I listen very closely to my wife's words about.
But do you wear it?
Pardon?
You say you listen to her, but you didn't say you do.
I do wear my helmet
Okay.
almost all the time. There would be some times that I choose, if it's 90 degrees out, and if I'm riding somewhere where I feel it's somewhat, I will not wear one. But I will tell you, the majority of the time I wear a helmet.
Now, I was told that
Life would not be good if,
motorcyclists specifically in this catastrophic thing, they're excluded.
they are. And you pay an extra fee.
But you
for
have to
that.
pay for the thing.
You have to pay for, you pay extra on your insurance for some of that, but yep, they are.
So you pay for it, but you don't get any benefit.
Well, you're not on the, you're still included in it, you're actually not paying as high a rate as what the regular automobile folks are paying.
All right.
But you're paying for it, you pay an extra amount of money if you choose to be in that to get it. But, because most of them, if you get in an accident, let's face it, if you're on a motorcycle, you're going to the hospital. It's not like a car with an airbag coming out.
I was told about the helmet law, when they used to argue about that the helmet, the fighter pilots wear helmets. They said, if you hit the ground at 700 miles an hour, the helmet's not. No, the helmet is to keep you, when you go through the canopy, if it doesn't open, you won't be killed when you go through the canopy. Am I right, Sheriff?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a fighter
Nor
pilot.
am I. just
I'm
know
a
that-
motorcycle rider that enjoys being out
Yeah.
and the freedom of riding a bike, but it is very, I will tell you, you need to be at a heightened alert when you're on a motorcycle, because anybody that comes to a corner, my wife will know, anytime that somebody comes, I let off the gas, because I don't know what they're gonna do, and I wanna see if they're committing to the full stop or if they're gonna go.
Yeah.
So I just don't go racing. If I see somebody on a country road, I'm doing the same thing. I back off the gas because I wanna know if they're committed to making that stop or if they're not. So it's always something you really need to be aware of when you're on a bike. What else do we got? Yeah.
Teachers' pensions.
Yes.
How is that good for the state, the current one that just passed?
Well, there's a couple reasons. As you know, we just passed it out of the House and the Senate. We'll go back in some back history right now on the pension program so that we kind of follow through where we're at. We have now basically 3 systems inside the state. The very first one has been closed for about a half a dozen years, and that's the pension that we have a major debt load in. We're at $29.4 billion behind payment, underfunded. And every year that the number everybody throws out is 2038, that we could be out of debt on that. I feel that number is off, because we're using the numbers that we're using for the investments are a little high, and people's ages that they're living to are considerably longer than what is actually in place on that policy, because they take the national dates of what people are living till, and we don't have an updated one until 2020. So we're $29.4 billion behind on that one. We have a hybrid system that we have put in place with the new folks that came on. They have to be at least a teacher for 10 years to be vested into that program. Everybody says, well, it's 100% funded right now. Why don't you just stick with it? Because it is. If you start running the numbers and you start looking at, we have a downturn in the economy like we did in the early 2000s, that fund will become unfunded or underfunded very quickly. So what we did is we actually changed to a defined contribution, a 401k system. We bumped it up so that they'll get actually 7% of their pay. What this does is that we're actually paying it forward into their account. They do get to invest it the way they want to. They're young and they can be a little bit more aggressive. They're a little older, they're coming into teaching. But the money is actually in there. Once they're vested, that's their money. They can have it at all times. Biggest problem we're having right now is that there is a lot of teachers that never make 10 years. And that money goes right back to the system and they get 0. The other part of this pension is that it actually funds them up front, and that money is there and it's guaranteed to be there. Our concern is that the pension as it goes right now, we didn't make some changes in it. There's a big chance that thing's gonna escalate even further, and it could get to a point where it could be a GM or it could be a Detroit, and the pension, if there is one, is greatly reduced, and I feel that that's a disservice to people that we promised. And we need to make sure we're taking care of them. So felt that this was the right decision to make for the right reasons, and I feel as we also got a little bit different worker today. Workers today move, and I'm assuming that it's happening. I don't know how many of you have people working for you. I know our sheriff does. They're switching jobs like crazy. And I mean, they see something that, oh man, I can go move to Holland and I'm gonna get paid an extra $1,000 a year. I wanna move to Holland. They're gone. And that's what's happening, but inside our teacher pension, they wouldn't get their pension, but they're still gone, they're leaving. Now these young people will actually have that money in, and once they're vested, they can move. They say the average teacher lasts between 4 to 7 years right now. That's the current teacher, And a lot of them aren't going into the profession because they say, there's no way I'm working 10 years to be able to get some of my money back. And so they're going into the private sector and we're losing our teachers. So I feel, and you'll hear all kinds of stories on both sides of the fence on that one. When I really did my study, my talking with people that are in the system now and those that have only just recently been in the system, they feel that this is a good move. And of course, some of them that have been in it a long time think what we did was very bad. So you just gotta do your homework, and I tell people, I will tell you, I had somebody call me on Thursday. They didn't call me, they sent me a text, basically telling me that I was a bad guy, in nice terms, so I called them. I got the text, I looked at it, dialed them up on my phone, and I talked to them on basically, 50 minutes on the way home. And went through the whole process, and when we got done, he goes, well, I don't believe it's that way. My wife was a teacher for 30 years. I said, I understand that. But I said, you also now work in the private sector, and you were working for the city, but now you work in the private sector. How many of your people do you lose on a yearly basis that they just move and they move? And he goes, well, I guess I never really thought about that. And so, I mean, there's a lot of pieces to that. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
What happens to a teacher's pension or a deputy's pension if they go from, say, Manistee 5 years, they go to Onekwa for 4, they go to Wayne County for 6, they stay in the profession perhaps their whole life. What happens to their pension? Do they start over every time?
No, actually, they'll carry that on as long as they're in the profession without a break, isn't that right?
Now what about the deputies?
Same.
Oh, okay.
Same. So anybody that's a current teacher that's in the program, it doesn't change as long as they're in the public school system in the state of Michigan. Let's say somebody was working and they've got a vest for 10 years and they've got 8 years in the system and they go to work for Grand Rapids Public School System from Manistee. They just, if they took a little time off, it just starts back over again because they're in the profession. However, a lot of them, what'll happen, and we chatted with somebody the other day. She decided that she wanted to be a mom. She worked 9 years. Got out of the schooling, said, I'll go back and go back to work. Never went back to work. She says, you know what, I love being a stay-at-home mom. I've never gone, but if I would have gone, I would have had 9 years that I could have invested when I left, but I lost everything.
But what happens if you went from a school teacher to being a deputy?
Well, that's different. That would be
They're
different.
public servants.
Well, that's different because
Different pensions.
they're different pensions, different programs, all different rules. I mean, each pension, they've got all kinds of different pieces to that.
Now, the state police system, is that in the same situation?
For the pension,
Yeah.
I honestly can't tell you where the pension sits for the state police, and how well-funded they are. I can't tell you that. I would much rather see some of the pieces that we do in the state police and bring them into the local level. Because I feel that we can manage our money at a local level, and if we gave some of those dollars, but that creates another ball of fire that right now I'm not willing to toss out there. I mean, I've expressed my feeling that if we're bringing 100 new state officers in, wouldn't that be better if we sent that and put one and more in each county? But that's a piece that John and I would probably agree on, but unfortunately, most of the other lawmakers don't see it that way. So, I don't know if we'll see any movement on that right away. But I know there's a few rumblings down there that we'd like to see more come back to the local side. And there was some bills out there earlier, but it was, and I try to keep you in the loop. I text them with certain things and why I oppose some things. And there was one, but it was a carve out for certain districts and it would actually harm ours. We would have gotten nothing out of those bills, but other counties would have picked up dramatically. And I said, wait a minute, I mean, we got that many dollars, that's almost an officer in each county. And I think, my county should be able to see that, so. I'd rather have 4 than 0 added, but that's what you gotta fight through, so that's kinda where we're at on that. Anybody else have any questions? God, you're an easy group.
I was gonna talk to you about the DNR, but you took my spiel away.
Yeah. Well, we're not, none of
Who
us.
oversees them, by the way? That's what I thought.
Here's what I've learned very quickly, and don't take some of this the wrong way, because it could be, but what happens is with term limits, and you got somebody for 6 years, as myself, if I'm fortunate enough to serve 6 years, what I've already found out in some of these big parts of the government, they go, we can give them a little bit, but we can outweight them. And by the time my time's up, I could have been working to a direction, but my 6 years are gone and I'm off and back doing what I do. They go, we outweighted that guy, and now the next guy comes, and if he's not on it, we may never have to worry about any of it. And that's the problem with some of these big departments, is they actually outweight you. They can, I mean, I've got a gentleman right now, 2 of them, 2 senators that have been on it for 14 years. They've been working on this almost from the day they came in. And because of all the turnover, when they finally get the relationships going the right direction, they're leaving, and now, you know. So it is the bureaucracy of some of the term limit problems.
Well, I just wonder who oversees the department, because, you know, they raised the
We do
rates.
technically.
They raised the rates for the hunters, and it showed that the out-of-state hunters just, where did they go? They went to Wisconsin and some other places where the
Well,
cost was less, and then
Right.
Cascading
Well, actually,
effect.
you take that, and here's mine. We have one of the best migratory bird populations seriously in the United States. We have an unbelievable grouse woodcock population in the UP. Premier hunting. Problem is, it's 7 days. A lot of those guys don't flip in for 7 days. You take the duck hunter, the waterfowl hunter, which was one we took the big hit on, is that you're down in Indiana and you go, well, I'm not gonna run up to Michigan to hunt for 7 days, pay all that money, when the birds will be here next week. Well, what they used to do is they'd come into Michigan and maybe hunt a weekend before the birds came in to get their dogs ready, get everything set, and then the birds would be in their area to
Oh,
hunt.
I agree with you, but isn't somebody in the DNR looking at the figures and going, I think maybe we made a mistake? I guess that's a no.
Here's the conversation, and I'm glad you bring it up, because this is exact, we sat down in my office when I put these bills together, because I wanted the DNR to come in neutral or support. Because I certainly don't want them to oppose, because when they oppose, some people will automatically vote no, even if they don't understand everything. So we sat there and we started on a small game and worked our way into deer hunting, but we did a full circle. And they go, well, you know, we just really don't want to see any loss in revenue. Because we feel it's, and I said, well, if you take what we lost when we made the change, we should go back to that. And then we'd be equal, but then we'd be taking the backside of everything. And even though they know that that's the right idea, they look at it as that they potentially could lose revenue inside their department, and they won't bend, even though they know that's something we gotta do. Deer hunting was a perfect example with our doe to buck ratio. We take every state around us, which is Wisconsin, and not including Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. For every buck that's taken, 1.7 does are taken. State of Michigan, for every buck that's taken, 0.7 doe. So we're a full deer behind, and that's why you're seeing our deer explosion. And it's because, but when you talk around the whole thing to them, they understand. The other problem is we've lost 300,000 hunters in the last 25 years, and they're proposing in the next 15 years that we're gonna lose another 100,000 hunters. And I said to him, I said, okay, so then if we're at 0.7 now, what's that gonna be in the future if we don't make some changes? And what's that gonna go to our state herd? So, you know, those are the things, so, you know, we're working really hard to, you know, hi there.
Right.
We're working really hard to try to make sure that we work with them, hold them accountable. But it's very difficult because they're very protective of their turf. Certainly.
Now that the House has thrown healthcare back to the states, how are you feeling about?
Are you talking the federal level?
Federal
Okay.
level. Now that that's been thrown back to the state, how do you feel about essential benefits?
Well, number one, we don't know if it's been tossed back to the state yet.
Well, that's the idea.
Well, right now, I will tell you, in the insurance committee, we've had several parts of the state that have come in, and they actually feel that we're gonna be better off, but it depends on how it's funded, and none of us know that. We don't know what it's gonna be. And until we see those numbers, it gets very difficult to make assumptions. I'm very careful about assuming what could happen until we see what it is, because you don't. You can spend a lot of time with what ifs, but if you don't know what you're doing, or you could spend hours and hours and hours on a what if, and it may not even be what that is. So I'm very careful about getting nervous about bills that are been written. I do the same thing with folks. I tell them, I very seldom will read a bill if it hasn't gone to committee, because in most cases, that bill's never gonna get looked up, and you know, I'll read the title, and if it's something I feel that alarms me, but a lot of times, you know, you've gotta trust the committee guy to read it, and as soon as it gets into committee, if it looks like it's gonna come out, then I'll study the bill. So I'm very hesitant to give you an assumption, other than when we had the folks from Medicare, Medicaid came in, they said, under what we're hearing right now, we feel this could be a win for Michigan, but that was probably 8 weeks ago. So I don't know a whole bunch more than that. Do you have a question or so?
Yes, sir.
Great,
My name is Richard Vaughn. I'm from Portage Point near Necama.
okay.
And I live in a house across from the old softball field, if you're familiar with that area.
I'm
It's kind of-
trying to visualize if you're heading out, it's gonna be, before you get to.
Before you get to the Portage Point Inn.
Right, and it's off.
And there's
one
kind of
those-
an open field
Yep.
there, and traditionally they've held softball games there.
Okay,
It was owned by the hotel, and they had a variance to store boats there thing occasionally, but that was repealed recently. And they have new owners, and old owners are bankrupt, and
right,
now they wanna put a 5 or 6 story building to store huge boats there. And
okay.
move small houses, they call them little dow houses, over there for temporary employees in the summer, and change the zoning from residential to commercial. And obviously, that would adversely affect all the people who live in that area. And my understanding is that about 10 or 13 years ago, the old owners tried to get that declared buildable. And they, DEQ examined it and said, no, it was a wetland. About 4 or 5 years ago, the new owner had it redone, and they said it wasn't a wetland, and so that gives them an argument to put up this giant building there. And my request to you is that maybe you would have some influence with the DEQ or the DNR, I'm not sure which, to re-examine that issue and see, well, is it really a wetland or not, since there was
well, I
2
can
surveys.
certainly inquire about that and find out. I will tell you, I'm just gonna give you another short story of how difficult some things can be with the DEQ. My wife and I met probably 3 weeks ago with the DEQ with the park that's right across the street from Portage Point at the end of 3rd Street, is it? right there on Lake Michigan.
Second Street, yeah.
Second Street, and where the dune is now taken over the park and is eating it up part. And we went to see if they could get a permit to at least lower that dune down in the front so that you could be in a parking lot and see Lake Michigan. Gain entry so that they could do work on the beach to make sure that the trash and everything is picked up, and the DEQ is, when they make their mind up, you don't understand necessarily if the sad thing is if the township would have continued to work that dune and kept it clean, they wouldn't be in where they're at now, but that's hindsight. You come in there, but they're calling it a critical dune, you can't do any work. I will inquire for you and how that got changed and why it got changed. I don't know how much pull I can honestly tell you I'll have, but I will certainly look into it and find out when that got changed and for the reasons, and inquire how it got changed, but I don't know. I knew that something was going on, I just didn't know what it was.
It appears to me to be a wetland still. It has that broad, light-colored grass growing up in it, in the low areas. But that's a very technical subject, as you know. And there have been two separate studies done. One said it was a wetland, the next one didn't. So I'm very suspicious of that change. And I think someone with your influence could
I'll certainly
request
educate myself on it,
clarification
ask a
on
couple
that.
questions, and I can get back to you and let you know
Have a new,
they got there.
Have a new study. I don't know how much that cost, but it's probably not real cheap. I would guess a few $1,000s.
I have no idea,
No,
but I'll ask some questions for you.
appreciate it.
Because at least I can because I'm sure if you're asking me now, I'm gonna get a few more that are gonna start asking those questions
Well,
too.
they've got an organization called Concerned Citizens of Onekama that are
Okay,
disputing this whole building project. And
okay,
if you'd get back to them, would be the best way to go rather than me. I'm just one person who's a member of that.
okay. Well, I'll certainly educate myself on the issue. And what's the township's feeling on it? Are they
The
for it?
township, I understand, I don't know them all, but they all live in Onekama or nearby, and none of them are from Portage Point, so they're all for it. They claim they want to increase employment in the area, is my understanding, and I think I'm told they're gonna vote 7-0 for it, in favor of it.
Okay.
We had a meeting last week, Thursday, and they passed it to send it on for the final redraft of the project, and it will be coming back in play again when that's been completed, I believe, at the next zoning board meeting.
Well, and I know that, we don't